Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to our evening Dhamma session. Just supposed to be questions and answers tonight, but I think we exhausted all questions last week. There's only 5 this week. So maybe we'll try and elaborate on at least one of the questions. Give a little bit of a longer talk in the form of an answer. So Sanka asks a really good question. How would you explain ignorance playing second fiddle to craving as the root cause of suffering, according to the second noble truth? In other words, why is craving highlighted as the cause of suffering instead of ignorance? So to recap the context of this question, there are 4 noble truths. What it means is there's a difference between a noble truth and an ordinary truth. Truth is a very special thing, but there are many truths that they're special in the fact that they're true, because there are many more things that are false. There's only one capital of France, and that's Paris. There are a lot of other things that are not capital of France. But that's not a noble truth. So therefore, the Buddha explicitly delineated the number of noble truths as 4. There's not more than that. Many other truths in Buddhism. But the reason why only these 4 are noble is because they involve the realization of Nibbana. They're the only ones that involve directly the realization of Nibbana. So in that sense, actually, the truth of them is not really noble, in the sense that if you know them intellectually, if you've read about the 4 noble truths and you believe them, that's still not noble. The 4 noble truths are the experience of freedom, the truth of suffering. A meditator realizes that experience is not something that you can cling to, it's not something that can satisfy you. Getting and getting more and more experiences, the right type of experiences, will never lead to happiness. That's the first noble truth. That's the first noble truth. The second noble truth is what is the reason? The reason why we suffer. The cause of suffering is while craving. And it's craving after those things that actually can't satisfy you. Craving after those things that cause you stress. They cause you stress when you cling to them. So the cause of stress is craving or clinging, or however you want to say it. It's a cause of suffering. It's a cause of suffering because of where it leads us. I mean, you can extrapolate upon this. The reason why we work so hard and strive so hard in the world and fight with each other, it's all because of our desire for specific experiences, certain experiences, or our aversion towards other experiences. Our fear of what it comes down to just experiences. The third noble truth is the cessation of suffering. So it's a noble truth, both in the fact that it means that the cessation of craving is the cessation of suffering, but also it's noble in the fact that that is freedom, that is the cessation of suffering, that is nibbana. It is true happiness. It's the opposite of the first noble truth. And the fourth noble truth is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. So again, the cause of happiness. And the cause of happiness is really the opposite of craving. It's the opposite of reacting. So craving is a sort of a reaction to experience. It's when a thought arises in the mind, there's a desire for it. Like you think of delicious food, there arises a craving, a desire. And the desire, of course, leads you then to strive for it, which is the beginning of stress and suffering and problems. When you can't get what you want, when you reaffirm your craving, your addiction, or when you get what you want and it's a cause of, suppose you want cheesecake and then you get cheesecake, and getting it is actually, there's a lot of suffering involved because, well, maybe that's not quite fair. There's suffering involved because you have expectations, but there are consequences of getting what you want, right? If you get lots and lots of cheesecake, you'll become sick, you become unhealthy. People who eat a lot of sweets, and people who do drugs is a very extreme example. You get what you want, but it's not really fair to say that that's suffering. Suffering is really because of the the attachment. Yeah, maybe it's still fair. Because people with attachment, with strong attachment, are going to cultivate experiences that are very stressful. But really the core reason is because of their addiction, not because of the results. So getting sick isn't really suffering, it's suffering because you don't want to be sick, because we have desire for pleasant experiences. But it is true that the more you strive after pleasant experiences, the more likely you are to fall into unpleasant experiences. So a person who lives contently, who lives off in the forest, say, they'll be free from certain types of suffering or stressful experiences, simply by virtue of not needing to fight with people and work laborious jobs and so on. Anyway, so the path, so that's the cause of suffering is our craving. But the path, what leads out of that, is the opposite. When you have experiences in your mind, it's the Eightfold Noble Path, really, but it involves this practice that we're doing of learning how to have a perfect experience, an experience that's free from that sort of reaction. So those are the Four Noble Truths, and the second one says that craving is the cause of suffering. But we also, if you look at Paticca Samuppada, it's clear that dependent origination, it's clear that ignorance is the beginning, right? Without ignorance there would be no craving. But so why isn't ignorance the cause of suffering? Because what we mean by ignorance is ignorance of the fact, ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. That's what we mean by ignorance. So, I mean, suggesting that ignorance is the cause of suffering it's like saying you have a thorn, you have a thorn in your side, or a sliver in your hand, or something, a piece of glass in your foot, and it's causing you suffering, but it's made worse by the fact that you don't even know that it's there, right? If you don't know that the sliver is there, that's the reason why it continues to hurt you, because you haven't gotten rid of it. Or maybe more precisely, suppose you eat unhealthy food. It's the unhealthy food that's causing you sickness, but it's the ignorance of the fact that the food is unhealthy for you that's causing you to eat the unhealthy food. So it'd be more fair to say that ignorance is the cause of craving. Without craving, there is no, without ignorance, there is no craving. And what all that means is, if you knew that the things that you were craving were not satisfying, if you knew that craving was useless, was meaningless, or if you experience things as they are, there would be no craving. When we walk, stepping right, stepping left, in that moment there's no opportunity for the arising of craving, because our interaction with our experiences is equanimous. It's clear, it's neutral, it's pure. So this is why ignorance is not. And the other thing is that ignorance isn't really a thing, right? You don't suddenly give rise to ignorance. Ignorance just means the fact that you don't know yet. It's not something really that arises, so it's not a thing. Ignorance is a state. It's a description of a type of person. A person has ignorance just means that they've not yet learned the truth. And it really means they've not yet become enlightened, because it's the experience of Nibbana that does away with what we term ignorance. It changes a person. So ignorance is a description of a worldling, an ordinary person. A person who's become enlightened is free from that ignorance, is in the category of being free from ignorance. So anyway, that may be enough to say about that. Why are the cemetery contemplations part of the Satipatthana Sutta? It's a good question. It's not really relatable for this group, because we're not wondering whether we should practice them. The Satipatthana Sutta, so this maybe gives us a chance to talk about samatha and vipassana. There are certain types of meditation or ways of focusing your attention that are just for the purposes of tranquilizing the mind. Now the cemetery contemplations are that sort of meditation, but they're also just generally useful. I think they're included there just because it's the Satipatthana Sutta seems to be a way of describing a life, a way of living your life. If you read through the various sections of, especially Kaya Nupassana, body. Well, that's one. If you contemplate dead bodies, it fortifies your insight practice, because it creates sobriety about the body. It reduces your delusions about the body being something beautiful or special or wonderful or so on. When you see dead bodies rotting and pus coming out of them, breaking up, with just flesh hanging off the bones, and eventually with just bones. Okay, and then we have some questions that I don't really, we'll go through them fairly quickly, I think. What's the difference between a dead body and a body that's alive? A body isn't something that exists. I mean, I guess you'd want to say the mind isn't there in the dead body. But, body is just a concept. It's a temporary amalgamation or conglomeration of physical particles. But there's a history of why it's there. So you're just really seeing an echo of some activity, some mental activity. The dead body is like an echo of the mind. Because if you think back to how it arose in the womb of the mother, and was created, we would say, based on the activity, the active mind in the womb. And when you die, that ceases. So all you've got left is sort of the echo of that activity. What's the relation between the previous and next birth? Well, that's maybe long question, long answer, explaining rebirth, but basically, again, birth is just a concept. The mind is born and dies every moment. When we die, it's just the body. It's more like discarding this body and starting fresh, because the body wears out. Is rebirth caused by the result of the mind clinging on to more experiences? Yes. It's really just generally the fact that there's clinging left, because the mind, with clinging, will seek. So clinging on to more experiences, absolutely, that's it. Is performing magic not practicing the precept on deceit? Well, if you're talking about sleight of hand, like not real magic, but performing fake magic, like not really doing magical tricks, but presenting them as being magical tricks, well, that's one thing. I'd say most magicians accept the fact that their audience doesn't believe that they actually are magical, and knows that they're being tricked, which makes it not a trick. And so magic just becomes the act of trying to figure out how someone did what they did. So it's a matter of magic in that sense is just about trying to hide your methods, and the audience is left wondering about your methods. Not about pretending that you did something one way and instead doing it another way. Like, people don't actually believe, wow. Although it's interesting, if you're talking about kids, you may actually fool the children. Like, for example, Santa Claus, let's say, right? Lying to children that there exists as Santa Claus is actually lying. It's actually unethical. Santa Claus is a really bad idea. All around bad, There's nothing good about Santa Claus, come to think about it. I'm probably wrong. If I thought about it long enough. But a superficial look at Santa Claus makes him out to be a real bad guy. First of all, there's this guilt, right? It's like this boogeyman. He knows if you've been bad or good, right? So it's a way of guilt-tripping kids. It's a way of making ethics and morality all about rewards. If you don't do this, you're not going to get some toy that you want. I mean, what does that say about morality? And they say, so be good for goodness sake, but this song, right? Santa Claus is the opposite of doing good for goodness sake. Santa Claus is about doing good because your parents lied to you about getting rewards. You could say it's all for good fun, but I disagree. Tricking your children, and then eventually they find out that you've been lying to them all these years, and they learn that's the good way to behave. Lie to people. Yes, I know it's all in good fun to some extent, but that's not my idea of good fun. I was thinking about this whole gift-giving thing. And gift-giving around Christmas is also, I really am not so keen on it. Especially with kids, because of all the greed involved. But gifts should be much more natural, For Christmas there tends to be, I don't know, people really enjoy it and have it's great to give. I'm just not convinced that it's the best idea to have a holiday for giving. If you want to make a tradition in your family that when everyone gets together we all give gifts, but it still, I think, misses the point. This whole giving gifts to everyone, it's very active sort of giving. It's very much active in the sense of wanting to give and creating this desire to give, which is actually not really very Buddhist. Giving should be natural. Someone needs something, you give it to them. Someone asks you for something, or someone deserves something, like your parents, for example. You think, oh, I want to express my gratitude, or gratitude to a teacher, or that sort of thing. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. I'm thinking of my teacher. I'm not trying to suggest giving me anything. Don't go there. But yeah, this whole Christmas thing. I think if Christmas is about getting together as a family, I think that part is fairly wholesome. But the gift-giving part, we had this charity thing. We all got together and gave money to charity. I didn't, but all my students did, and my family sort of got involved. And I think that's a good Christmas tradition. I'm not the only one. Families do that, but we did it as well. And we got this really nice letter back from them saying how much we're helping children. That's better than this whole Santa Claus crock. I'm being purposefully controversial, I think. Will you be broadcasting on Second Life in the future? I'm not sure, actually. I've got an email sitting in my inbox that I have to answer about that. But I was thinking about Second Life, and I don't really see the point. I like to support the Buddha Center, that thing, but I'm not clear that it's actually of great. You know what I was thinking about today? I think it'd be a real gimmick if I did a virtual reality, some kind of virtual reality thing. I tried virtual reality when I was in Thailand, and I was able to sit up on a cliff and meditate, and I was sitting up on a cliff, and look around. I was thinking, it'd be a neat, but I mean gimmick, it'd be something that might get the attention of the press or something. So it's kind of a silly thing to do, but it might be neat to go that way and make something that's not been done before. Is that, you go into this virtual reality, and suddenly I come walking towards you and explain to you how to meditate, and we go through the exercises together. I don't know how difficult that would be to program, but if there's anybody out there who knows how to do that, maybe we could think about that. But mass media is much more. There's two I think two useful activities. One is to produce things that can be mass consumed, and the other is to do intensive one-on-one training. And I think that's sort of the two important aspects from my point of view, of what should be done. But teaching small groups, giving a talk to small groups, it doesn't really interest me. Because if I'm going to teach 10 people or 5 people, who aren't doing a meditation course, it's not that I mind doing it, it's that going out of my way to do it doesn't really seem all that beneficial. It's just too small of the benefit is too small. When giving a talk on YouTube is the same result, except it reaches a lot more people. I guess what I really mean is it's a lot of work to boot up Second Life and get in there, and it's not that I can't do it, it's just I have to ask myself why I'm doing it. And as a monk, that's an important question, because I have to be careful that I'm not going outside of what a Buddhist monk should do. Not so much that I feel lazy or something like that. It's not laziness. It's a question of, going beyond this realm of teaching because people ask you to teach. I think there's a line there. Someone says my microphone is broken, the voice is too low. There's there's a reason to stop all this entirely. It's really just not working. Hello, hello. Test, test. Hello, hello. Yeah, why is that so low? I don't know. It looks fine to me. I don't think I changed any settings. I'll turn your volume up maybe. Anyway, that's all the questions, and I think that was some good Dhamma, so I'm going to call it a night there. Maybe I'm just speaking quieter. Anyway, have a good night. Thank you all for tuning in.